So this is, I think that the I am in some ways is harder to speak about than the consciousness. The consciousness part you can kind of, point to and talk about who is experiencing, who knows that, who's recognizing that. So you can, with the consciousness part, I can say, somebody's instantly knowing these flowers beyond the word flower. They're just instantly known as they are. In this moment, you're instantly knowing the sound of my voice. You're instantly knowing the background. It's just appearing. And you put no effort into that. You don't have to switch your mind on and say, okay, let's make a wall appear here or the flowers appear. I want to be conscious of flowers. It just is happening. It's your birthright. And that's easier to talk about than the I am, I think. It's something that you can point to easier, even though actually consciousness isn't something you can point at and it's not prior to everything. It is everything. Consciousness is all things. Your consciousness doesn't appear behind your head and look through your eyes and see the room. The consciousness is in all things. It's just giving the appearance as if you're seeing it. You're conscious of it. But actually the consciousness arises in the objects that you see. And this is where the I am part comes in. Because, some people say that consciousness is prior to the I am. But in order for there to be consciousness, there needs to be things. There needs to be life happening. Because when there's no consciousness, when there's no things and no consciousness, so you can't have things without consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without things. When that's not happening, there is absolutely nothing happening, non-existence happening. And non-existence never happens. So you can't have non-existence. Has anyone ever managed to experience non-existence? Or have non-existence? Or put it in a bag? Or is it that non-existence never exists, so there is never non-existence? That's a very complicated idea and very, very hard to teach. If you find that you begin to get confused, just forget about it. Don't put any effort into trying to understand it. It doesn't really matter. I'll explain it like this. I'll give it another go, another analogy. Actually, I don't know if this is officially an analogy, but I will just say it like this. So imagine if, right now, you went to sleep, or you died, and there was non-existence. And say you went to sleep for 1,000 years, and then you woke up again. What would be the experience? Would you experience that non-existence? Would you experience 1,000 years? Or would it be asleep, awake? If you were asleep for 1 billion years, would you experience those billion years? Or would it just be asleep, you fall asleep, and then you wake up again? Non-existence never happens. Even if life was wiped out, which I don't think can happen, but even if life was wiped out for 10 billion years, it wouldn't even be a second. It wouldn't, even in the world, if it was 10 billion years that was suddenly missing, it wouldn't be experienced, so it wouldn't even be a second. It would be instant, even quicker than instant. Because non-existence never exists. You can never judge the time of non-existence and say, well, we didn't exist for 2 billion years, because the experience of it is always of existence. you can't experience non-existence. It doesn't exist. It's in the title, non-existence. It doesn't exist. But that's a very complicated idea to get your head around. And Advaita teachers, you know, I think that most teachers always come to, when someone says, what happens in deep sleep? They're like, oh, God. So some teachers are like, they give the example that in deep sleep you're aware of nothing. I prefer my way of saying it. That's why I say it my way of saying it. But okay, that's another way of saying it. You're aware of nothing, so there is nothing. Whereas I feel that consciousness and life exist together. And I don't think that in deep sleep, really, you're conscious of nothing. I think that deep sleep doesn't exist. So my way of teaching it, even though there is no right way of teaching it, and ultimately on the mental level, it doesn't really matter understanding it. As soon as you drop into the moment, you know everything. But if I am going to explain it on the intellectual level, then I would say that that consciousness and existence go hand in hand, because existence is consciousness. All things are conscious. And with the absence of things, there's the absence of consciousness. So then you get another school of thought that say the absolute is nothing, not a thing, but which is nice. It's kind of sweet, nothing and everything, but still nothing doesn't exist. So that's an impossibility to think about as well. So consciousness arises with things, with appearances. It's inherent in all appearances. So we think on a human level, because we tend to like to make everything about ourselves, that we're conscious inside this body, experiencing objects, whereas actually there is consciousness in that object, but the way that life is experienced is as if it's looking from an angle. Like if you imagine a dream at night, so at night you fall asleep. I had some funky dreams last night. I don't know if other people did. I don't know if that's a full moon thing, but there were some funky dreams. I dreamt this very famous teacher. This is a very bizarre dream. I dreamt this very famous teacher. I met him and he was a vegetarian, and he said he stuck to his vegetarianism, but that he did eat meat on occasions, and what he ate was boobs, like breasts of women. So women that were like, going to have their breasts removed for cancer or something, like, because you know how some women have their breasts, that he would eat those. And he thought that was very ethical, and it was like a way of luffing the boobs. And I was like, he would eat the leftover boob. That was a very interesting dream. A very famous teacher as well. So imagine your dream at night, whatever you dreamed last night. Maybe your dreams were more normal, of horses and ponies and dolphins. So your dream last night, when you dream at nighttime, what happens is you don't experience the dream as looking from everywhere in the dream. Like, we don't know how that would look like if you dreamt at night and you dreamt as if you were experiencing the whole entire dream in 3D or 5D or 10D or whatever it is. We dream at night as if we're looking through a body. And normally it's this body we dream, we're this body, but sometimes we dream we're another body. But we often dream as if we're looking through this body. And as we walk through the dream, it's as if we're experiencing objects as that dream character. So we walk through the dream, and when we open a door handle, it's as if we grab a door handle and we open the door handle and we open it and we walk through the door. And it's as if we are this body in our dream at night, this dream body. And that's how we dream at night. It's unlikely that you're going to dream from the perspective of the moon, or the perspective of the door, or the perspective of the ground, or the perspective of everything. I don't even know what that would look like if you dreamt from the perspective of everything. but you dream normally looking through a body. But where is your consciousness of that dream? So as you, as the dreamer, as you in the bed, you are making up that dream and conscious of it, and you're looking through that person at the dream, but all of it is made of your consciousness. All of it is happening in your personal or big consciousness, whichever one. It's not that only that character is conscious and it's conscious of a separate world. It's conscious of a world that it's in relationship with, that came from somebody else's dream. It's actually all your dream and all peering in your consciousness, and all of it's made up of your consciousness. And then you're experiencing through that dream body. But it's all made up of the same. It's all happening in your dream. You're not getting that dream from somebody else. You're not that character in that dream and then having somebody else's dream that you walk into. It's your dream. So your consciousness is actually everywhere. Whether you call it the big consciousness or the personal awareness, your personal awareness is actually everywhere as well, because it's all your dream. So then if you take that dream back to this moment now, that's the same happening here. It's as if we're looking through these bodies, but actually the consciousness, the big consciousness, is everywhere in all things. You're not in relationship to something different from you. It's just a perspective. If in your dream at night you began to think, I'm in this body, this is my body, this is a really scary world I'm in relationship to, that doesn't mean that you're in relationship to something other than you as the big dreamer. It's just to that personal character in the dream, it feels that way. So right now, consciousness isn't removed from all the things. This is consciousness's dream, and everything is conscious. Just like in your dream at night, everything is your dream. Everything is made up of your consciousness at night. So you can see why consciousness is a lot easier to talk about than the I am. It might not be easier to understand. I don't know how that's heard. So then you've got this I am, this sense of existence, that you exist, or this presence. And this sense of existence, to me, the consciousness, if I'm going to put it into words, the consciousness is totally empty. It's like this empty looking, this expansive, vast, spaciousness. I didn't know you could carry on. Emptiness. It's empty. Nothing can touch it. It can hold on to nothing. It's just empty. And it's looking, it's aware. The I am to me, though, is love. It's the sense of existence that you are. And these two come together, actually. They're, to me, like the yin and yang side. They're together, the opposites that are together. They never can be separated. And this I am is so personal in a way, but not personal. It's so intimate. Like, it's so close to you. It's your sense of being, that you're alive right now, that you are. I am. Not you're a name, you're a race, you're a nationality, you're your history, but the you are. I am. It's the I am that you had as far back as you can remember yourself. So you know how as you go through life you get treated like you're older and wiser and you have more status, but internally you have that same innocent sense of being. That same being that you had on your 5th birthday. This innocence, aliveness, and it's love. You can't describe it, to me, I can't describe it as anything but love. It's what you feel when you feel like you've met the perfect lover, because when you meet the perfect lover and you have that moment of absolute in loveness with them, when you kiss and it's just orgasmic, to me what's happening is you're dropping out of time and dropping into the moment. You're forgetting about what you want, incompletion, about having, not having, and you're just there, you're present with them. And this immense love comes up, and then the mind says it's because of them. But it's actually because you forgot about yourself. You forgot about your life, where you came from, who you are, who you've been, your bad things you've done, the good things you've done, the games you've played, the future you have. And you're just there with them. And the touch of their skin or their lips is so intimate that everything is here. And it's what we experience as love, being in love. It's the highest goal on the human world, which is really amazing because it's got nothing to do really with survival. I mean, attracting a mate has, but that experience of I am has got nothing to do with survival. It doesn't matter on the human level whether you understand that, know that or not. On the survival level of the human body, on the animal level, that doesn't matter. But in the human world, that is the goal. We actually experience it with advertising, with music. It's the way we advertise, actually. As you know, when you see an iPhone or a laptop being advertised by Apple, and it's so shiny and new, beautiful, and does all these things in nice colors, and they put nice music in. And then for a moment, you're like, oh, you're totally in love with that phone. And you forget about having and not having, and that you've got it or not. You're just like, you're immersed in its beauty. And then you think, I've got to get that. Oh God, it's £1,200. But in that moment when you saw it in the advertisement, it was just an in loveness. And that's the I am. That's your I am. Also with this view, you know, you turn around, you're like, oh, this view is spectacular. And there's that moment where you forget everything. And then there's love appearing again. And we think it's because of the outside world. And it's, I mean, in a way, the outside world is having an effect in a way, but it's not because of the outside world. It's because you forget yourself. And the outside world presents everything you want in that moment. And your seeking energy disappears. Then what else can we have it in? Oh, we can have it in music, in TV, relationships, films, comedy, humor, intimacy, where the world just disappears. And this is, in a way, what makes us do all these crazy things as humans. And it's in a way what crazy and beautiful, like building those huge towers and huge monasteries, climbing mountains, coming here. It's like a big motivator, but in a way it's also a big suffering. Because the mind thinks it's in the world, it's in things, it's in situations, and I need to hold on to those things and situations, and that creates a lot of internal suffering. So it keeps you in the mind, it keeps you in thinking, and it unbalances the chakra system. And then you stop appreciating what's actually happening and having this intimacy and this childlikeness to what's happening, and you get lost in time, looking for that I am, and it's right here. It's in all experiences. It doesn't mean that you don't strive to make the perfect piece of music or give the perfect talk or do the perfect job or create something or build a monastery. It doesn't mean you don't do those things, but it's a shift from believing that that love is found in those things. That love you seek is your nature, it's your birthright, it's the I am. It's who you are. And I can't give it to you. No teacher can give it to you. We can remind you of it. I'm pretty sure that when I'm speaking and your attention is focused on me and you're resonating with it, there can be a sense of that love. Not all the time, but a sense of it. And when other teachers speak, but they can't give it to you. Because again, it becomes a new object that you believe it's in. They can remind you of it, point to it, but it's, in a way, something needs to happen in your body, in that seeking energy, where it begins to be destroyed, that idea that love comes from time. We never experience time, so how could love come in time? We only ever experience this moment. We don't experience the future. We don't experience the past. We experience this moment with ideas of future and past in it. This is where we are. Always. So it must be here. So one thing you can do, and maybe you have to do this when you're feeling quite emotionally balanced, is you can imagine something that you want, that you really, really want. Whatever that might be. You can just pop that into your imagination now. I'm not sure if other people's imagination works like mine. I have a very strong imagination, so it might not work for you. And it's not a failing if it doesn't. It's just an experiment. So just think of something you really, really want. That's positive. Not like something that's like, I want to not be in debt anymore. Like, I mean something that's like positive. Like, I want to kiss this person, or I want to listen to this piece of music, or I want $1 million, or something that's positive. And then see if you can imagine receiving that and having that. That you're totally allowed it. And you can try this again later if nothing's happening. But you might experience that you begin to feel love. If you begin to experience love, then how can love be outside of you and in an object if it can come when you simply imagine something? How can it actually be in that object? The lover, the dinner, the music, the scenery, the perfect moment. If you can imagine love and love comes, then surely it's in you. Surely it's you. Then this also comes to the point as if there's something outside of you. So we think we experience an outside world. Is that true? Do you ever experience an outside world? Is that ever possible? If everybody is experiencing this world differently, if a bee, a bird, a tortoise, a fish, an elephant, a blind person, a dog, a cat, a bumblebee, if everything experiences this world differently, is there actually a world out there prior to your experience? And if everybody is experiencing this world differently, then which one's real? The bumblebee's version or our version? Even us experience the world completely differently, each one of us. But your experience or the bumblebee? Or your experience or the fish? And if in 1,000 years' time our brain has evolved a lot and changed a lot, which one is true? This experience, the way humans see it now, or the way they see it in 1,000 years? Quantum physics suggests, even though I think that our minds are limited with all the sciences, and we look at science on a premise of what we already know, and we're not sure if what we already know has any truth to it. So we base our science and our maths and our investigation and our statistics and our research on what we already think, and we're not sure actually how accurate our thinking is. But quantum physics begin to suggest that the reality we see is dependent on the way that we think. They even go as far to say that if you think differently, your reality will change. Which would actually really begin to change our ideas about mental health. Like, it might be with mental health that we look at it in a really wrong way, which makes it worse. But I don't know. I'm not a scientist. So then you also get schools of thought in spirituality. I think they tend to be named under more New Age ideas, where it's like you change your mind, you change your reality. So kind of more law of attraction based. And again, I don't think that that's true or reality, but I think it's got some truth in it. That if you see this world as dark and evil, then that will be your experience of this world. If you see this world as magical and miraculous, that will be your experience of this world. If you're open to different possibilities, then the world will show you different possibilities. If you're closed to possibilities, then the world will show you closed possibilities. This can sometimes stress certain characters, and other characters can be like, woohoo, I love this. So the characters that tend to have felt disempowered by life, so more than likely disempowered by their parents, and then it's carried on through life. If you felt disempowered a lot by life and like you can't do things, if I say something like that, then it's like, because that's your tendency to think you can't do it. So your tendency would be, I can't change my thoughts, I can't do that. So you won't like that idea. If you are somebody that's felt very empowered and like you can do things and you can affect change, then you'll tend to like that idea more. It doesn't mean that either way is right or wrong, it's just the way that we interpret things. Ultimately, there is no free will and choice, but on the human level, there's the appearance of free will and choice. Ramesh Balsekar used to say that's what makes it not feel like you're caged all the time. It's like you feel like you can choose between coming here or going somewhere else. So it feels like there's freedom. Enlightened or not enlightened, there's always that appearance that you can choose. And that appearance of choosing helps you to update your machinery and give you more information. So by choosing this watering system or that watering system, in the appearance of that choice, you update your machine with information about each one. And then your machine picks the best one that suits you. Like what we do with the internet, or with Siri. I think Siri is programmed now to evolve. So the more information it learns about you, the more it evolves to adapt to you. But I'm not sure if it's that clever yet, but it might be that it's evolving. It doesn't mean that Siri's choosing to evolve, like has free will, but it looks as if maybe from Siri's perspective, although Siri doesn't exist, neither do we, that he maybe is choosing between this information is more correct for Lisa or this information is more correct for Lisa. And the way that he does that is by having more information giving. So our appearance of choice helps us to make more intelligent decisions. But if you're conditioned by your parents that you always fail, that you can't make choices, that you're not going to do it, and by society and the education system, then this choice is going to become a very scary thing to you. But that's just conditioning. That's got nothing to do with the absolute reality that there is no chooser. So somebody that's felt disempowered a lot can sometimes be attracted to the idea that there is no choice and there is no chooser. But also, they can be very afraid of that. It depends on your traumas with choice making. But it's absolutely irrelevant on the human level. On the human level, it feels like you make choices. What's relevant is seeing on the absolute level that there's nobody that makes choices. But on the human level, you appear to make choices. But you give it all to God at the same time. I know that sounds very contradictory and like, oh God, what's she even saying? She says one thing, then the other thing, then this thing, then that thing. But you just kind of take what works and go with the flow. On the human level, you're going to feel more happy if you become more empowered and more relaxed with choosing. So on the human level, if you can let go of outcome, which will most probably happen through the realizing of non-duality, that love and freedom isn't found in the outcome, it's your nature. And feeling more empowered in that choice. Like that choice is not going to disempower you in any way. I think this is a massive sticking point for people choice. But it really doesn't matter so much. It matters to an extent, like your physical comfort in this world, but what's more important is what's happening. Many wise people would say, take care of now, and you take care of now and what's happening, and the future will take care of itself. Obviously, we need our imagination to cope with this society and this world to an extent, but it's really coming more back to what's actually happening. I know before this subject, I couldn't have lived my life the way I live it. Like I felt a lot of disempowerment around choices. And I know that now I can still have pain around choices, but I know that it comes a lot easier choosing, because it's not that important, choosing. So it comes a lot more easier. I just focus more on what's happening rather than what happens in the future. Like an example of moving to a country where you don't speak the language, putting your business there, your taxes there, or your communication in a language that you don't speak. Like, I think that would have been a harder choice for me prior, because I think I would have got caught up in worrying or thinking about all those things. And buying a house as well, like all the contracts you have to sign, or the understanding of this different society, and not having your parents' advice or anybody's really advice about how to do that. I did have one person that advised me, but I didn't like to use it up, like use him too much. So it was generally just a lot easier because I just sort of focused on what was happening. I do that the same with driving. So I drive in many, many countries in many different cars. And my motto is, you just drive for now and then you deal with what's going to come. So you don't think about their potential intersection. So in England, we drive on the opposite side of the road, I'm sure you know, and we have an opposite car. And I drive my English car in mainland Europe. But then like now I've rented a car that's European. So I've come from England with my English car. I've been used to driving in France with my English car. And then I rent a European car. And I'm like going for the door handle to try and change the gear stick. As well as my brain having been used to driving my English car in Europe. So I'm like, I just deal with what comes. And then if I get a panic, my theory in myself is if I get panicked, we just pull the car over. And then the rest of the time, you just deal with it when you deal with it. So I've once, when I was new to driving in mainland Europe in my English car, I ended up in the center of Paris. And the center of Paris was very confusing to drive in. Someone even told me that people won't insure you in a particular part of Paris. And I suddenly end up in what looks like to me a big roundabout with no markings on the road and nobody in front of me that I could have followed. So I wasn't exactly sure exactly which direction to go or where I should go, so that I'm just like, whoosh, go! But sometimes it panics me, so then I think, okay, we just pull over and we follow a car again until I can get out. But advice to anyone, don't drive in the center of Paris, unless you know Paris. But that was an accident. I ended up there by missing a junction. And I think in the past, like when I was younger, I remember having opportunities to go on holiday in France with my car. I think I would have worried beforehand about it. Whereas my motto is very simple. We just deal with it when it comes. And then we pull over if we begin to have a panic attack about one of the roads. We just go, or if we realize we're in the road the wrong way, we just pull over and we wait. And we calm down and then we start again. And that's to me, that works with life as well, with my decision making. Obviously, I have to think about it to an extent, but I just deal with the paperwork when it comes. I deal with going to the doctors in French. Like, la tête. Thinking, okay, just use a big word, because normally the big words are the same as English with a French accent. So, la connexion, la tête, la connexion. And this is so you just come back to the moment with your life, with your business, and you deal with it here. And the consequences will have their consequences. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm on an assault course trying to work out the French, like with the taxes. That's complicated, doing your taxes and your whole business in a language you don't speak. And then I deal with it then, and it might be quite painful experience. Maybe I get charged, maybe I get fined because I've done it wrong, but then I'll deal with that then. And if there is some sort of worry that comes up about it, which sometimes it does, like did I do this and did I print out that, then I will then do my best in that moment to deal with it again, and then it's like you give it to God. I mean, we don't know the outcome of these things. And that is certainly, on the human level, a recondition from being in non-duality. And that's helped me immensely, that you deal just with what's happening and you don't need to worry about things so much. Obviously, worry is needed to an extent, otherwise it never would have evolved. If I wasn't having concern about doing the business correctly and by law, then that might have a worse outcome. So if there wasn't a concern to do it to the best I can. But You just come back to what's happening and you give it to God. And it will be the way it is. And I assure you, whatever happens, if you fall over and if you get it wrong and something, what we consider bad happens, I assure you, if you take that hurdle that you fell over, that fall in the right way, and the right way to take it is to see it as a growth, then you'll be back up again. You see, okay, this has taught me, and you look and you focus a lot on what that teaches you. What has this taught me now? What is this teaching me on the human level? How is this teaching me to improve on the human level? Whatever happens, the most difficult situations, how can I grow from it? And if you take it as that attitude, then you will be able to ride the waves of life. And you'll have a great attitude towards life. Again, this isn't, though, something you do on the personal level. You don't have to worry about, okay, I've got to do what Lisa says and change all my attitude. It's something that'll naturally happen. You're already listening to the talk. It's like Siri being exposed to new information. It's going in there and it's updating Siri. It's updating you. It's happening already. You're already interested in this subject. So don't worry too much about when am I going to get there. That's a useless thought. What is my level in comparison to other people here? Like I say, it's that you see that thought and you see you're in comparison. You come back to your feeling and you just let go of that. You say, okay, I'm in comparison. I'm in not feeling good enough. My heart hurts. And you just give that some attention, and then your mind should stop compulsively thinking about it, or begin to stop compulsively thinking about it. With these talks, it's actually the same mentality I have as well. Even though this time I've got titles to the talk, if I try to think about what I was saying, it'll be a disaster. It's just like the driving. I just have to deal with it bit by bit. And I'm not sure if I'm going to make sense, if I'm actually going to make a story at the end of something, because I don't know what I'm starting with. So I just start speaking, and then luckily a lot of the time it sort of arcs and it makes a point. Sometimes it doesn't, but luckily nobody complains. They just accept it, like, well, that didn't really make sense, but hey-ho. Maybe they have the thought, it's me, I didn't understand, or something, but I get away with it. So I deal with it, and if something goes wrong in the talk or something happens, then you deal with it in that moment. And maybe sometimes there can be worry or not worry, but like a contemplation of things that have gone wrong, and I can contemplate how to correct that in the future. But really, you have to just give it to God. It's going to be the way it's going to be. And if something's going to happen, you deal with it then. This is the most in line on the human level that you can be with that I am and that consciousness. This is where, as you become more balanced and you settle down, then you can hear that consciousness and that I am, that it's here. When you're constantly lost in yourself and your worry and your struggle, then it's like consciousness and the I am seems so far away. There's such a disconnection from it because you're in so much seeking and time and believing that that time is real, where here is real. This is what's real. So Nisargadatta Maharaj, his teaching, I didn't even really realize that I came from the line of Nisargadatta Maharaj with Ramesh and with Roger. I didn't really connect it, even though I knew that Ramesh was his student. And what I used to do when I was suffering a lot or meditating, but particularly when there was lots of suffering, was I used to put my attention in the I am. And I don't remember Ramesh teaching that, and I don't remember Roger teaching that, but somehow I just begun to do it. So if there was deep suffering happening, first of all I'd explore the emotion, but if the emotion wouldn't stop, I would then start chanting, I am, I am, I am, I am. And sometimes I would just do that also when I was gardening or by myself. I would just chant it like a mantra. And as I chanted it, my attention just sort of stayed with that thought. I didn't have a brain which could multiply think. I just would stay with that thought, I am, I am. And I didn't realize until the last few years, I think, that Nisargadatta Maharaj taught that as well. And I didn't know where I picked that up from. It must have been somewhere in Ramesh's talks. But it's only if that resonates for you. You see how that feels. And notice that that's you practicing it. And that something is conscious of that. And that I am is inherently there. So notice it's a you practice. It's not going to lead you to enlightenment because you don't exist. But it's a great way to help settle that person. So who becomes the I am? We think we're going to become the I am, but who? Who becomes the I am? You already are. You already are conscious. It's just this person believes it's not conscious, and it's not I am, and that it's something in the future. And I'm going to arrive there in the future. And even that practice of I am leads to that way of thinking, but it also relaxes the person. Which is super important. I used to not give that enough importance to relax the person. I used to not give it enough importance relaxing the person. Not because that person gets enlightened, but because while that person's there, it's going to seek. And if you're not seeking so much in the material world and in relationships, then that seeker is going to feel very lost if it doesn't have something to focus on. And then sometimes what can happen in some characters is then they fall into their sense of disempowerment and then potentially can feel very depressed. And that's a human thing, that's not to do with the absolute, but I've begun to really understand the functioning of humans from working with people, because we're not all the same. We're all different, but as I work with more and more people, I understand that when that person is no longer focusing on external goals, to not have a goal can really be distressing, because you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go. And that freedom can be overwhelming. And if you spend too much time in overwhelming, then you become depressed or depressed thinking. This world is too much, it's hopeless, I can't get there. And none of that's true. That's a personality effect. That's an effect of no longer having a goal externally to work towards. I begin to have more respect for ashrams and organizations that teach this. It's not that I think they're right as such, but I understand that having that organization or having something to work for on the human level is super important, especially in this change. Because life is goalless, life is meaningless on the absolute level, but that's a joy. That's not a depressive thought. That's beautiful. But when the human takes it personally, life is meaningless, life is pointless, that's depression. And that's this area being very contracted and uncomfortable. So just before we finish today, I'll just say an observation that I'm having, is that there's a lot of participants that are feeling very happy and very content and blissed out, but there's some participants that I can see, I'm not looking at anyone, I'll look directly at the camera now. There's some that I can see that are having a lot of stuff come up, of discomfort come up. And my advice to you, if that is the way, if you are feeling uncomfortable, is to try your best to see past it being the environment, it being people around you, it being this situation or me, and try to come back to what you feel below that and beneath that. And then eventually come to that place of I am, that this is, that the freedom's here. I would try and catch your mind when it begins to spiral out into some form of blame or some sort of guilt or some form of projection, and just come back to what's actually happening. Because I assure you, it's more than likely, it's not that there aren't problems, like we can always find problems with everything, but it's more than likely not what's actually creating deep suffering. Like we can see problems and we can fix them and we can grow and we can expand on that. But if you're feeling a deep sense of suffering, it's more than likely not that. It's more than likely triggering something deeper in you. Because I don't think there's anything here that's really offensive. Like I think that when your mind is more balanced, you'll begin to see that it's not really offensive. Maybe there's some things that can be improved. That's always the way with me, with the environment, with the situation. But I wouldn't let that catch you, take over you. But try to see beyond that, see what's going on underneath that. This is a gift to do that. It really is. Okay, thank you.